As we finally enter BCS season card fighters, I have a slurry of deck profiles to showcase this upcoming couple of weeks. From every deck that I've been playtesting on Discord, every meta deck I want to discuss later in the future that I've been trying out, I have a lot of deck profiles to showcase you guys, both good and bad, for the upcoming season of BCS and Cardfight Vanguard standard format. I have been doing a lot of experimentation and a lot of updating of my previous decks, from Baphormedes to Direful Dolls, as well as some of the other Fun Story Kid decks I've been trying. I have a lot of deck profiles I'm going to be showcasing you guys, so if the quality of some of these deck profiles don't seem as good, just know that it's because I'll probably be doing like one deck profile or two per day, just because that's how much playtesting I've been doing for the past couple of months. During that hiatus I was taking from like earlier this year, because I'm getting out of school very soon, I've had more time to like experiment and play test, and with certain decks getting their support coming out now, especially with set 4 or 5 of standard format coming out very recently, I've just had the opportunity to like finally showcase the builds that I want to. Now at the time making this video, we are going into like the first week of BCS tournaments available. I believe it's in Sacramento, California, so we'll get the deck list for those, and obviously we can discuss those later if that's something you guys want to talk about. But as of right now, I'll just showcase the decks I've been personally enjoying and playing with to see what you guys think about them moving forward for both fun decks as well as potential decks that might be just ones you guys might not suspect to see in the tournament, but will know what they can do because obviously these deck profiles existing. I've got a lot of these to do, so we're just going to hop right into this video, but before we can do that, you already know what's coming next. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Do not forget to hit the notification bell so you guys are always up to date on my newest videos coming out. To get the deck profile started off with, I am still playing the Diabolos ride line for Baphormedes. After playtesting a variety of ride lines, the new Blackmire ride line, as well as the generic ride line from the Favre start deck, the Diabolos ride line has still been the best one for me to personally try out with this deck. The addition of the additional card draw, as well as the soul charge earlier, sets up for earlier cards and gets extra grade 3 targets from the soul to drop zone via other card effects, and it's just been very fantastic to have. All the other ride lines, they're cool, they work, but the Vacant Fang one for Blackmire is very situational if you don't find grade 3 targets. The Favre generic cards, I experimented with the Rhino and the grade 2 slot. However, because this deck for the longest time did not have any form of draw power, that additional card draw off of Richard was such a big deal because it helped me dig and find other pieces. Every single time I was on the Rhino, yes, it was nice to have the booster for the Vanguard attack, but eventually your grade 3s will become boosters anyway, and you're going to set the board up and you need to have other spaces for other pieces to be there. So the grade 0 there just at a certain point became an inconveniency, and I'd rather convert that card into additional card in my hand to set up for future plays. You definitely can try out the Rhino, or you can try out the Blackmire ride line. I think both of those are fine, but the Blackmire ride line is way too high rolly for me. You have to like literally get the double grade 3 play every single time and the card draw to make it worth it, as well as the fact that the generic stuff from the Favre ride line is only good in certain situations, and they don't have much synergy with any of the other Diabolos cards outside of the grade 2 Rhino in the place of Richard. But keep in mind, you will be sacrificing a card draw to your hand just to ride up. For my next card, it is obviously our MC, which is going to be 3 copies of Demonic Lord of Hades Blaze Baphormedes. Now, Baphormedes is an older card, so I'll quickly go over its effect, but it has 2 simple skills. It states, on the attack of the Vanguard circle, you move 2 of your grade 3 rearguards into soul. He acquires 10,000 power per every 3 grade 3s in your soul, and then you get to draw a card. You draw the card first. Continuous Vanguard Circle, he gets all of the skills according to the number of grade 3 cards in your soul. If you have 3 or more, all of your grade 3 units get shield plus 5k and boost. 6 or more, when it would attack, your opponent must call 3 cards from their hand to the Guardian Circle to guard against it. Now, Baphormedes is a very powerful Vanguard. He could be if he had the proper support. Unfortunately, Dark States just has not gotten the best or the strongest generic grade 3 support compared to like other nations. I do think that the deck is not unplayable. It's finally at a point where over time with the more generic support we are getting, it has gotten better. But Baphormedes individually as a card I think is still cool. You know, you get additional 20k, 30k power, which is not hard to acquire in this deck. You have the guard restrict skill, and there's no cost in this Vanguard as well, meaning if we do get a very strong generic grade 3 pace in the future that benefits this deck, we can take advantage of that card. And the Vanguard just gives boost to your grade 3s and the shield benefit as well. So everything in your hand eventually will become a defensive piece, which is always nice, especially with how fast Vanguard is right now. And then obviously the guard restrict effect is huge because there will just be a certain point where if you reveal the Dark States OT, or if your opponent's at 4 damage, they're going to have to always drop a huge amount of their hand to actually guard against the Vanguard attack. And with this deck having access to 4 attacks now and being just a lot more consistent with the 4 attack play, the Baphormedes 3 card guard is always going to be scary. The setup in this deck is much faster as well, so the access to that secondary skill does not take as long as it did in my prior build with the new support which means that Baphormedes as a Vanguard, usually on the first grade 3 turn, will always be functional, or at least on turn 4, you'll have a proper board to take full advantage of your Vanguard's abilities. For my next card, I play 3 copies of Causality Dragon, Crucial Dragon. Still one of the best supporting grade 3 pieces, Causality Dragon, Crucial Dragon can become a 10k shield or attacker like a lot of the other Festival Collection grade 3s of his time period, but his 2 secondary skills do come up a lot. The first one being where if you have something behind it and it does not boost with it, you can move that card into Soul to retire on your opponent's rear guards, give him a 5k buff. We do play a couple of cards in this deck that have rest effects, or we'll put like maybe other grade 3s in the Soul to increase number of grade 3s that we want for for Baphormedes' effects, so that this way we can get the power-up skill for him live right away, or we just want to get some more control into this deck and just make this card a magic number on Persona Ride turns or other attacks when effects apply. The secondary skill of the over trigger effect does come up sometimes. It gives this deck a finishing piece because as of right now, you're relying on the 3-card guard from the attack of Baphormedes to really eat away at your opponent's hand. And when it does, you can swing with Causality Crucial Dragon, get that OT removed, and then actually get another guard restrict effect on top of your Vanguard attack. So that's 2 attacks with a guard restrict turn. If you have proper setup and your opponent's at high enough damage, they're going to lose a lot of their hand trying to block all these attacks. And then obviously this card can go in for the final strike. For my next card, I play 3 copies of Cyc Dragon. This was the tech grade 3 that I found in my prior build to actually accelerate the addition of other grade 3s into the deck, and it's still a very strong card to have. Cyc Dragon has the effect of on attack, counterblast 1, you choose normal units from your drop zone, you move into the Soul and he gets 5k. We play a couple of orders in this deck to actually improve the consistency as well as the board formation of this deck. Forbidal Surrogate, I'll just spoil it now for you, as being one of them because it is the best card to actually get this deck live. You can combine that with the effect of this card, you get 6 grade 3s into your Soul right away with a 2-card grade 3 setup from your order, as well as this card going ahead and picking out 2 cards from your drop zone to the Soul, which will obviously be grade 3s. That's almost 4 grade 3s into the Soul right there, and then obviously other card effects should help you get there. But it is one of your best supporting pieces, and it's actually one of the few grade 3s in this deck that makes a good number by itself outside of Causality and your Vanguard. For my next grade 3, it is still 2 copies of Hideous Acrobat Mirus Laava. Mirus Laava is still fantastic in this deck. It's a really nice setup piece. It gets more grade 3s onto the board, although they do come from Soul. If you have enough grade 3s in your Soul at this point, or there's a specific grade 3 target that you need, you can take advantage of that unit's effect to increase your Soul anyway to get more grade 3s in there, on top of the fact that if you do Soul Charge in a copy of your Baphormedes and you have a way of replacing it with another grade 3, you can get Persona Ride into your hand early. You can even go into Forbidal, and I didn't mention this last time, but use Forbidal to search out your Baphormedes, and then go ahead and Soul Charge it in, and then on turn 4, or if you have any prior skills that have like milled out the Baphormedes from deck to drop zone or Soul Blasted out, you can use Mirus Laava to get this back to hand. It's just good for giving you extra bodies onto the board to make a good offense, as well as get your Persona Ride back, but I did cut it down to 2 because I want to make space for other cards in this deck that I actually feel like are more important, so it can actually keep up with the current format. Now, one of the newer cards to actually join this deck is 2 copies of Hideous Cyc Dragon. Now, this is a new grade 3 from the most recent set of Vanguard Dimensional Transcendence, and this card has the following ability. It states, auto rearguard circle, when this unit attacks, Soul Charge 2, put all of the trigger units Soul Charged by this effect on the bottom of the deck in any order. And this unit gets power plus 5,000 to the end of that battle for each card put on the bottom of the deck. Now, Hideous Cyc Dragon is fantastic because this is a battle phase double Soul Charge, but it puts your triggers to the bottom of the deck. This way, we have more selective Soul Charging in this deck, and you can get more grade 3s in there during the battle phase when you're attacking and setting up your Baphormedes play. This card is actually fantastic because a lot of the times we'll be doing a lot of compression out specifically for grade 3 pieces, and this deck's selective Soul Charging has gone a lot better since the previous variation I made, and Hideous Cyc Dragon become a good number. When it does whiff, you don't feel too bad because you know it's going to set up for your Baphormedes play, which the Vanguard attack is the main attack of the deck anyway, so not getting the power gain isn't the worst thing. It is unfortunate sometimes because obviously you want to make the best numbers, and all these cards being grade 3s, they can make magic numbers very easily, but a card like this is just really fantastic for setup as well as the offensive push. When it does happen, you've compressed your deck enough to see more triggers. For my next grade 3, I got a couple of tech pieces here. I'm playing 1 copy of Exaggerated Dragon just to filter out my hand for grade 3s that aren't doing me anything right now, and I just want to, increase my count as soon as possible to compress to see other pieces. So I feel like 1 copy of Exaggerated Dragon is still good. You can replace it with anything else, like if you want an offensive piece that gains 5k power, be my guest. But I actually like this because one of the problems with the grade 3s I noticed in my prior build is the fact that all of them don't actually get their effects active unless they attack. So I need some grade 3s that can do something prior to like being an offensive unit, or if I need them as a booster because of Baphormedes' effect, and Exaggerated Dragon just naturally came to mind. Again, it's a filter out to get another piece to your hand by moving your Ritto from hand to soul, and that's pretty much its main purpose. Next up, I play one copy of Diabolo Striker Brian. I played this card in my previous Baphormedes build, and if not, I'm playing it in this build again. I actually really do like this card. The Soul Blast 2 to get rid of the irrelevant or the non-grade 3 pieces is fantastic. It makes, again, it fixes your number issues and gives 5k to your entire front row. And because we have a multi-attacking piece in this deck, like we'll discuss later, we have access to multiple ways of increasing the power of said unit prior to that card's effect going off. Now for the star of the show, and honestly the most important card of the deck. I know it's a little pricey right now, but if you want to play this competitively, you need one copy of 4-bit All Surrogate. This is the deck's best setup order. Being able to search your deck for 2 grade 3s with different names is extremely important. You can fetch out your Cyc Dragon. This is normal order. That card activates that already. You have cards like your hideous Cyc Dragon, Jared to filter out. Pretty much this card, when you see it, will give you the 2 grade 3s needed to trigger the effect of your Vanguard right away. And then this is a grade 3 card, so if you have a card that can recur this card back from drop zone into the soul, that's a big deal. Next, I played 3 copies of Cage of Furious Star. I was playing this card in my build prior. Same thing, it's a slower starter piece for the deck, but it is a grade 3 order. You can use it to soul charge 1, get something from the soul that can hopefully assist you, like a Cyc Dragon, a hideous Cycler, or Jarrett, to like help you get more grade 3s in the soul and just cycle things out. It gives 5k, so it makes a magic number as well. But the fact that it's a grade 3 order and we play a card in the deck that actually requires you to play orders means I must have multiple orders to actually use this deck. You can exchange it for a couple of other cards. I haven't been experimenting. Walk in the Dark is cool. Walk in the Dark is a grade 3 blitz order. I took out one of these for one of those for a time. It was fine. It wasn't the end of the world. You can also play one of the older grade 3 orders, like the one that lets you counterblast 1, soul charge 4. That's a grade 3 card too, and it's a 4 card soul charge. Obviously power up Baphormedes and be targeted later to be put into the soul. Those are the options I personally like so far. I think that they're good, they're great, it is what it is. But again, this is just a slower starter piece for the deck. For my next card, I am playing 3 copies of Black Sky Thunder Quaking Queen Lumina. Now, I'm still playing Lumina in this deck because this deck needs as much drop power as it can get in the early game. Baphormedes is not Bastion. It doesn't have the insane consistency support that Bastion has gotten over the years because it's not a main character deck, right? But Lumina is, you know, your right cycler for Dark States, and she does play good in this deck. You can use her again like another copy of Mirus Laava, so this is another way of getting out those grade 3 pieces from soul to board. It is unfortunate that she is a grade 2, but because our grade 3s can become boosters, it's not the end of the world. Lumina is good on your multi-attack turns because this is how your deck can get like 5 attacks if you set it up right. And also the fact that you really just use this card for its ride cycler skill for anything means that, you know, you have ways of drawing cards in the early game to keep up with all the other decks right now. Next up, I played 3 copies of Desire Devil Bubetsu. Probably the highlight of the deck. Everybody who plays Baphormedes is always talking about this card, but Desire Devil Bubetsu is how this deck can perform 4 to 5 attacks. When it sees a card moving from the soul to the rearguard circle via a Vanguard effect, you can counterblast 1 and call something from your hand to rearguard circle. Its secondary skill is if you got 10 or more cards in the soul, you can draw a card. The beauty of Bubetsu in this deck is the fact that I'm finally playing a build now that can actually take advantage of that secondary skill to draw a card. In my prior build with this deck, the first skill was always live, but because I was playing a bunch of soul blasting effects, I had to eventually take those cards out so that this way I can get the additional draw power from Bubetsu, because as of right now, this deck prior in my old build did not build up a hand. This deck now can take advantage of all the skills fully, including Bubetsu's, to actually build up a hand so that you can defensively do something. For my next card, I am playing 3 copies of Exaggerated Draco Kid. A grade 1/grade 3 unit. Exaggerated Draco Kid counting itself as a grade 3 is huge. This card can become a fantastic defensive piece later, being a 10k shield because it does count itself as grade 3 on rearguard, guardian circle, and soul, so it triggers Baphormedes' skill. The secondary skill is actually pretty cool too. We have a lot of grade 3 targets naturally in this deck, so when you call it to rearguard circle, you get to soul charge 1. If it's a grade 3, you get to move a grade 3 card from your drop zone to the soul. So this card itself, if you get lucky, that's 2 grade 3s right there. Call another grade 3 from hand. That's 4 grade 3s automatically going into your soul via for Baphormedes' effect. It's a nice setup and defensive piece for the deck, and I would play more of it, but the next copy of the card I'm going to showcase you next took up the 1 slot of this and Bubetsu because I felt like it was way too important not to have. And my favorite tech right now in this deck is 2 copies of Melody of Fiendish Flower, Taka. Now this is another one of the new cards introduced to us in the most recent set, so I'll quickly go over its effect, but this card states, At rearguard circle, rest this unit. Choose a card from your damage zone and put it into soul. If you put a card into soul, put the top card of your deck into the damage zone face down. And if you put a grade 3 or greater card with a different card name from your Vanguard into soul, you may soul charge 1. Taka is fantastic. Because of Taka, we now have access to grade 3s from both the deck, the drop zone, the hand, and the damage zone now. You can get your grade 3s from anywhere on the board whatsoever, and Taka was just the missing piece currently to the puzzle in the deck that I like. Being able to get a grade 3 specifically that you want from your damage zone is very important because this deck uses about like 1 counterblast a turn, so you don't really care about what damage you lose. If they're grade 3 pieces, if they're Baphormedes, that's all fine. You have cards like Mirus Laava, you have other cards take advantage of other cards in the soul, and obviously you need as many grade 3s in the soul as you can possibly get. So putting Taka in the back row in the early game is pretty cool too. It's also a grade 1, which means that you can drop it on the rear guard to attack with, so this deck has like units you can use in the early game that will be value later for this deck, which is obviously pretty important. And most people usually don't care about this card because it'll put self to rest anyway. But the fact that it can take a grade 3 out from the damage zone and then give you another soul charge means this card itself, on the best of circumstances, is a 2 grade 3 card. Now for triggers, this deck is very straightforward with it. It's going to be a total of 8 critical. You've got a huge guard restrict skill, so you need to maximize on crits to make the Vanguard attack scary when they can't block it. 3 draws, like I stated, this deck does have a draw power problem. It's not as bad as it used to be, but you still need 3 draws to mitigate that issue. 1 copy of the Dark States OT. Our Vanguard has a huge guard restrict skill, so seeing the Dark States OT is actually really important. It's going to be able to assist you in, making more pressure when it's revealed offensively, and then defensively it's fantastic as well. There are none of the other OTs I actually really like in place of the Dark States one. The only one that might take up the place are the 2 new ones. I think the yellow one is good because it will blow up the opponent's board, give you more cards in your hand, slow the game down so you can set up more. The purple one is good because since this deck has a way of taking grade 3s out from the damage zone and obviously putting more cards in there, you can get yourself an additional attack that actually reduces your damage count, which is important for this deck because this is a slower deck, so you need more time to actually set up your plays to obviously win the game. And then 4 generic heals. You need to have 4 generic heals in this deck. I don't feel like you can experiment defensively with the new ones or the other effect heals, mainly because this deck needs to have guaranteed shield value. All of your grade 3s do become defensive pieces, but 5k shield isn't that good. And we don't have any grade 3s in this deck outside of Causality and Exaggerated Draco Kid to actually be other defensive pieces. And both of those cards are circumstantial in how they get their defensive benefits. So you just want to guarantee that you have 15k shield whenever you see a trigger. That concludes today's deck profile, guys. Normally I would do a mulligan and combo section for this deck, but Baphormedes I will not be doing that for because I've already done that prior in a previous video. And on top of that, like I stated, I have a lot of deck profiles to showcase to you guys. So to get as many as I possibly can out in time for BCS season, I'm going to be cutting that part out of a lot of deck profiles I personally don't find interesting for or need that mulligan or combo section because of how they play. But to keep showcasing you guys more deck profiles coming out, I'm going to be taking that segment out and also keep these videos shorter. If you guys do want that mulligan and combo section back in the more recent deck profiles not coming out this week, let me know, and I will go ahead and put those in there for you, but it's going to raise the time of the videos just a little bit longer. With that being said, card fighters, I'll catch you later in the next video. Y'all have a great day.